We finally got a patch where the meta has shifted for multiple roles, as top lane, jungle, and ADC have all seen major shakeups for 25.6. The big one is that Naafiri has made her way into meta as a jungler, so we'll have a full breakdown on that, along with a complete update to the tier list for every single role. But let's be honest, picking the best champion is fun, but is it really enough on its own? I don't know about you, but locking Gwen jungle won't feel OP unless you're power farming like crazy, which is exactly why our brand new jungle clear course is a must if you want to have challenger clear speeds that'll have you speed running any game below diamond. And that's just the jungle role. Your OP tier Urgot pick becomes actually unstoppable when you know all the ins and outs of every top lane matchup, thanks to the new top lane series over on our platform, which our subscribers are loving. Our tier list gets you the right champions, SkillCapped gets you the right skills. And we're so confident it works, if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using the platform, you literally don't pay a single cent. So why hold yourself back this season and finally get the rank you deserve? Click the link below to get started. And with that said, let's get into it. So starting off up in the top lane, we were bang on with our pre-patch prediction for Singed. So if you guys did not read the patch notes, Singed Q got changed so that as long as Q poison is still ticking on the enemy minions while your minion kills it, you will be granted with the gold from that minion. We showed you guys the comparison clips in the pre-patch tier list where Singed literally gets all the minions from the 25.6 clip, but in 25.5, without the buff implemented, he only gets 1. So you don't even have to precisely last hit minions in lane now, which makes the overall laning strength of Singed so much better. Not having to sit still and auto-attack minions to last hit them is such a luxury and makes Singed way more accessible for the average player. In the past, Singed has been much more of a high elo skewed champ due to his reliance on proxying to be most effective. However, due to this change, he actually has a better win rate in the lower ranks for 25.6. At the very start of the patch, Singed win rate jumped up about 1%, and because of that, Riot decided to issue a hotfix nerf to his Q damage. With this hotfix nerf going live, Singed win rate is actually a little lower now compared to last patch in the higher ranks, but in plat and below, it's still higher. So overall, Singed has been skewed more towards succeeding in low elo due to all of his changes, and is going to remain in the S tier as a really strong pickup. Now for the Gwen adjustments, heading into the patch, we didn't have a super good idea as to how her power would shift, but now that the changes have been on live servers for a few days, it's safe to say they've been incredibly impactful. Gwen has seen the largest win rate boost for any champion in 25.6, as she's gone from being an average 50% pick to skyrocketing above 53.5%, so even higher than Singed. So the gist of the changes are that Gwen's early game is much stronger now, however her late game scaling did get nerfed. Obviously this has turned out to be net positive, with Gwen gaining 4% win rate. There's been a hotfix nerf issued to bring some of this early game power down a bit, but it's really not enough in our eyes to remove her from being a top tier pick. Base health is down from 650 to 620, while base armor drops from 39 to 36. So we probably see that win rate fall down from 53.5 to about 52 from these nerfs, but even then it still keeps Gwen in a phenomenal spot. So we're going to be placing Gwen in the top lane OP tier as one of the highest priority picks of the patch. So for the top lane tier list in 25.6, the notable is Gwen moving up into the OP tier. It does look like there could be some merit to the top lane Naafiri pick, but it's kind of too early to tell if she's actually top tier or not. Naafiri is being played way more in the jungle and mid lane, whereas her play rate is sitting just below 1% in the top lane. So we're going to hold off on adding her to the top lane tier list for now, as we generally don't add champions unless their play rates are above 1%. We'll keep an eye on her though, and could circle back for next patch if she gains in popularity as a top laner. Fiora and Garen were the other two top laners changed for this patch, and contrary to Gwen and Singed, their changes did not move their power levels very much at all, so there's no further movement for them on the mid-patch tier list. So there's a new jungler on the block for 25.6, as the mini rework has turned Naafiri into a strong pick in meta. When Naafiri was first released, she saw a bit of play as a jungler, but never really solidified a spot in meta, so this is the first time we've actually seen her gain traction in the jungle. Naafiri ended up getting a buff to her pack mate's damage to monsters being increased from 100 to 165%, so it's a nice boost to her clear speed. Of course, the big changes were to Naafiri W and R as they swapped places. Naafiri W now providing that 1 second of untargetability is also incredible for skirmishing and outplaying the enemy. For example, let's say you're going up against a Lee Sin and he tags you with Q. As he's then flying towards you, you can use your W when he's in the air and completely block the second part of his Q damage. Naafiri currently has a 57% win rate in the Lee Sin matchup, so it's looking like her new kit does an amazing job at shutting him down. Also, if you're going in for a gank on the enemy bot lane and they have a hook support like Thresh or Nautilus who's going to try and CC you, if you can time your W correctly, then you can completely avoid getting CC. Build-wise for Naafiri jungle, so far Bruiser setups have been outperforming lethality. The core winning the most and what's being played a lot in the higher elos is an Eclipse Rush into Black Cleaver second and Spear of Shojin third. The best rune page to go along with this build is Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Coup de Grace, while Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight are for secondaries. The majority of Naafiri jungle players have been taking ganking domination secondary, but inspiration is what's outperforming right now. So for Neferi's tier list placement, we are going to be moving her into the OP tier for mid-patch. So it's not just top lane Gwen who has newfound success due to the adjustments, as jungle Gwen is equally as powerful. Gwen even lost monster damage on her passive for this patch, which has us thinking she'd lose strength in the jungle, but the rest of the changes have heavily outweighed that damage to monster nerf. Before the hotfix nerfs went through, Gwen literally had the highest win rate for any jungler, so the changes have been extremely impactful. As we noted for top lane, even with the hotfix nerfs coming through, there's no way that Gwen loses enough power to push her out of a top tier spot, so she's a great pickup for 25.6. With the changes, your early skirmish strength is much better with Gwen, and as a jungler specifically, this is really nice to help you be more proactive on the map. It's still early on, so we're not 100% confident in declaring this as the best new setup on Gwen. However, Lichbane Rush does now look to have much more potential on the champ. With the changes to Gwen E, she gains more value from being able to weave in auto attacks, and the Lichbane passive proc works really well in that regard. So the Lichbane with Nashor's combo is something to try for this patch, and we'll have to see if it catches on. Take advantage of Gwen while you can, as she's going to be placed in the jungle OP tier. Master Yi is in a bit of a weird spot now after his 25.6 changes, because if you're playing the standard on hit builds, the champ has lost a good chunk of power due to the armor growth nerf. However, crit builds actually seem to be performing much better now. Crit scaling on Yi's Q was increased for 25.6, as a Yuntal Wild Arrows Rush does look to be much more competitive now. Is it actually the best way to play Yi though? Probably not, but it is still quite early in the patch, so we'll have to get a whole patch of data to see if there's something there. Overall, Yi did end up losing win rate for this patch, and he's hit even more substantially for the lower ranks due to the nerf being to his armor growth, and because games on average last longer in the lower ranks, a scaling nerf like this hurts Yi more in low elo. So we're going to be removing Yi from the jungle S tier for 25.6, as especially with all the new picks coming into meta, Yi's just not on the same level as them due to this nerf. So the jungle meta has seen a major shift for 25.6, as there are so many new strong picks to choose from now. With Xin Zhao and Jarvan both directly buffed, they are two of the best pure ganking junglers that you can play. If you want to spice up your champion pool and play something new, then both Gwen and Neferi are incredibly good picks as well. In regards to Darius after his nerf, the nerf ended up landing on the harsher side. We noted in the pre-patch tier list that we were expecting in between a 2 to 4% drop in win rate, and he's ended up losing about 3.5%. That being said though, Darius was literally a 54% win rate jungler in 25.5, so even though this nerf shaved off a good chunk of win rate, he's still in a good spot relative to most other junglers, sitting at just below 51% now. So not the OP pick he was last patch, as the clear speed of Darius jungle has become quite a bit slower, but still a competitive pick as he's being placed in the S tier. It's pretty unfortunate for Yorick jungle players, as his nerf has landed him in a much weaker spot. Yorick wasn't even close to being as OP as Darius, but the nerf hit Yorick equally as hard, and he's lost 4% win rate and is now a pretty average B tier jungler. It's likely we just end up having to remove Yorick for the jungle tier list entirely for next patch, as we don't see him staying very popular anymore as a result of this nerf. Over the past couple of patches, there has been a mid laner who's continued to hold an absurd win rate, but hasn't seen much of a play rate spike yet, and the champ we are talking about is Quinn. To get a read on whether or not the pick is actually any good, our challenger mid laner Shori decided to give the pick a go in solo queue, and he can confirm that the win rate checks out. Quinn mid is just so oppressive in lane as you start E and absolutely stomp on all melee matchups. It's point and click damage, and you can easily proc electrocute right from level 1, so you're able to gain such an early game advantage right from the jump. Everything just snowballs from then on out, as getting one early kill with Quinn has you completely unlocked. You grab Symbiotic Souls as your boots and rush Profane Hydra so that your shove and roam power is unmatched. The only downside to Quinn mid is that she can be a bit more vulnerable into longer ranged mids. Syndra and Lux are the only two mids in meta that Quinn has a negative win rate against, and it makes sense because they can sit back and just poke away at Quinn from range. Into melees, it's a field day for Quinn though, as she's winning over 54% of the time into Sylas, Yone, Katarina, Echo, Fizz, Talon, and Kassadin. So at the very least, if you have Quinn as a pocket pick to pull out in those melee matchups, you're going to find great value from the pick. And to get started on Quinn mid, we have a brand new full game commentary on our website from our challenger expert Shori. For mid lane in 25.6, the meta did not see nearly as big of a shift as most of the other roles, as it was really only the Neferi mini rework that was of significance. Pre-hotfix Neferi win rate did end up going up quite a bit relative to where it was last patch. However, with the nerf coming through, it likely settles out just slightly higher than where it was in 25.5. The fact Neferi's kit was changed though, and she's literally been performing better than last patch, does point towards a really strong champ. Usually you'd expect that with new changes, it would take players a bit of time to get used to them and initial win rate would drop a little, but with that not being the case, it adds to Neferi being a great pick in meta. So Quinn and Neferi are the only champs we are moving up the mid lane tier list for mid patch. The ADC meta for 25.6 has seen a major shakeup, as 10 different champs were changed, and this is how things have shaped out. The biggest losers of the patch were Ezreal and Corki, as their nerfs have landed them at the bottom of the tier list. We didn't think the Ezreal nerf would hit that hard, but he actually lost a full 1% win rate from the change, as his armor scaling going down makes him more vulnerable in the later stages. The adjustment that Riot issued to Serylda's Grudge seems to be pretty power neutral as well, so Ezreal was not helped by that one. Biggest winners of the patch were Lucian and Smolder, which is exactly what we had expected. We already moved Lucian into the S tier during the pre-patch tier list, and that has turned out to be the correct decision. Cooldown dropping by 3 seconds in the early game is really nice to provide him with more windows of opportunity throughout the laning phase. Smolder saw the largest win rate spike for any ADC this patch, as he shot up about 2% and is now at around a very respectable 50% level. That's pretty rare to see for Smolder, considering he was down around 46% for the start of the season and the majority of last season as well. So if there's ever time to pick up Smolder for solo queue, now is the time to do it before he ends up seeing high priority in pro play again, to where Riot is forced to nerf him to the ground. The Draven and Jinx nerfs have turned out to be more placebo than anything, as they've lost very minimal power for 25.6. Because of this, we're going to go ahead and move Jinx back up into the OP tier, while Draven is going to slide back into S tier. So in terms of what you should be staying away from now in 25.6, it's really just Ezreal and Kalista who are in the lower percentile. In order to make Ezreal work now, you really need to be able to play him at an above average level, and the majority of solo queue players are just not able to do that. If you're a fan of playing those more aggressive ADCs, then this meta shift is really nice for you, as Tristana and Lucian being back in meta is a nice change of pace. The only support change of significance for 25.6 was the nerf to Karma's Q damage, and so far it's resulted in her win rate dropping by around 1%. So as we noted in the pre-patch tier list, when it comes down to that top tier enchanter for solo queue, Karma is now out, while Lulu and Nami are your two who remain the highest priority. If you can play a good Melio, he's also quite underrated right now. Melio pairs up really well with Lucian, who just got buffed for this patch, as that duo wins upwards of 54%. The meta for support in solo queue is definitely starting to skew a bit more towards enchanters than melee supports. Braum's really the only true melee support who's been outperforming lately, as Thresh has been pretty strong as well, but with his auto range at 450, you can't really call Thresh a melee support. Lulu, Nami, Melio, Janna, Soraka, and even Yuumi have been outperforming the likes of Blitz, Pyke, Leona, Nautilus, Rakan, and Rel for the past couple of patches now. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it everyone, a complete update on the solo queue tier list for every single role as we reach the midway mark of the patch. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you back soon.